So this is one of your foregrounds, so to speak.
It's more of our foreskin.
So we had kind of the grunge thing. What would you call this? Is this kind of Swedish grunge?
So music in year 12, did you get a little bit of credit for being actual professional musicians?
No, we got no extra credit at all.
Excellent. Didn't hear at all?
No. I don't know. Probably not.
But was it performance music or was it theory of music?
Theory and performance.
Right. Did you pass performance?
I don't know. Probably not.
No.
Because we're too grungy.
Too punk?
No, I think we're too grungy.
Is grunge still happening and hip?
Grunge? It depends. I think anything that's dirty is grungy. For example, that building is grunge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it's hip. A lot of people like dirty stuff, like if you say this, that, you would see all that kind of crap. You're speaking a grungy language, because it's dirty.
Does that pull chicks?
No. I don't know, maybe. Might pull grungy chicks.
Grungy chicks, yeah.
Here's our spokesmodel challenger, the Spedal Hard Rock Video.
Pearl Jam.
That's right there, Nianius.
I thought we were grunge.
Full-on grunge.
Thanks.
Why don't you tell me what the biggest misconception about the so-called Seattle music scene is?
Everybody's a grunge band? What do you associate with the term grunge? Does that mean anything to you, or is it a made-up word, or was it a movement, or what does it mean anything?
Reminds me of being on a camping trip and having forgotten your toothpaste.
To me, of course, it was always lots of meaning with that.
Sure.
Like use and everything.
Sure.
The question is that just made up and put into my head, or by media, or by anyone, or is there actually something behind it?
Well, there's a history to the word, you know, but what it ended up, you know, it ended up being a term that was applied to a lot of bands that you know, I think there's certain bands that you could say for us were more of that sound. It seems like Mudhoney's kind of the ultimate version of that, and like their first couple records. After that, you know, it feels like a word with a lot of baggage, and it's something that, like baggage, is stuff that you carry around, but then there's some good stuff in there if you take it out and spend the time to open it, you know. It was, you know, grunge was even that term, that was really good for us, I suppose, because we ended up being lumped together with a bunch of other great bands as well, you know. But we were all really different, you know. Soundgarden was, you know, there were similarities, but crazily different than, you know, our band. And, you know, they took it to a level that we're still working on. You know, every Soundgarden record was a galvanized piece of, you know, it was a really focused vision and powerful records with no holes in them. And then you had Tad, and you had Screaming Trees, and you had Alice in Chains, and you had Gas Huffer, and you know, a lot of Sub Pop bands, and Fastbacks, and I don't know. Then it became kind of Northwest sound.
Well, first, actually, right, in Seattle at least, I mean, you've experienced it before, in the 80s.
Yeah.
Did something happen? Did something change?
I think it was just sort of an evolution of a really good Northwest music scene that has been there since the 60s, like with the Wailers and Sonics and everything like that. You know, it's the birthplace of Hendrix. Hart was from there. You know, I mean, there's just been a really cool sort of musical history in that region, and maybe it's just something in the air, something in the water that just created a unique musician. And there's water in the air. And there's also, there's other stuff too. But you know, luckily, our local music scene, like in the late 80s, that was presented by Sub Pop, had a really sort of clear vision, you know, and I think it was easy to sort of promote that, especially here in Europe and the UK, as a thing. And I think that's what people sort of gravitated to initially. And then, you know, Nirvana just made it go through the stratosphere. So it was sort of like this perfect storm that happened. And but luckily there was a lot of really unique musicians, you know. I mean, there was a real concentration of, you know, uniqueness in that part of the world at that time. I mean, and actually there still is, you know, there's a lot of great Northwest bands coming out still to this day that sound nothing like we did in the 80s, you know.
I remember reading, you know, as a fan of British music and, you know, the Kinks and the Who, and reading, you know, about Tuesdays at the Marquee, you know, about the Who, and this is 15 years into them. So this is 1979, I'm reading about the Who, and I'm 14 or something, and I'm sitting there and wishing, you know, angry at my parents for me not having been born a lot earlier, even though they would have only been, they were the same age as the people in the bands. But it was just that this is, I wish I could have lived during Hendrix. I wish I could have lived, you know, to be in these clubs to see the Who. I wish I could have been part of the mods, you know. And then, you know, years later, when this, I do remember having this realization after, you know, the record was out and all of a sudden Seattle and this thing was happening, and, you know, and I just moved up there and, you know, the year before the record came out or something. And I felt this community, and I thought, like, and at this point I'm 26 or 27, I'm just like, wow, I think this, we're actually part of something. Like, I'm actually part of this thing. Who knew? And it doesn't happen that often, you know. It doesn't really, at least not on that scale, for better or worse, but it doesn't happen that often. And there was a realization, you know, that we were part of something bigger. And it was pretty exciting until the wave kind of broke on our heads, and then it you know, that moment of exciting, of, you know, catching the wave and riding the wave before it came up and, you know, slammed us pretty hard. It was pretty neat for about a week.
I actually think
a couple days maybe.
Did the looking back now at the sort of the whole sub pop grunge thing, now that we can put it in the past, I think. What do you make of it all? I mean, do you think it was it hurt the music at all, or hurt bands, or was it a good thing as a promotional vehicle?
Always a good thing, sure. If someone wouldn't have come up with grunge, it would have been called something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And did it ever have any meaning, do you think?
Did it ever have any what?
Any meaning?
I think it described what kind of guitar rock we were playing at the time pretty well. I thought it was an okay word.
There was a scene too. There was like bands like the Fluid and Tad and Mudhoney, Swallow, like the whole sub pop scene. You know, like,
let's not forget Blood Circus.
Oh, Blood Circus. God, thanks for reminding me. And it was like really cool. Like people would play shows, and there was like no pretensions or anything. It was just like rock and roll bands intertwining with other rock and roll bands.
This is the first time that I had seen an audience just get completely loose. You know, to break down all that cool barriers, you know, where people are trying to be punk or cool in the early and mid 80s, you know, when we used to go to punk rock shows. You know, when all of a sudden, you know, Sub Pop was putting out records, and we were all friends with all these other bands, and the audiences at the places like the Vogue and the Central, it was incredible. Like, people were, you know, diving all over each other and falling down drunk and smiling and just vomiting and having a great time.